Hello, welcome to the tutorial on multi-tenancy in Server Side Blazor. In this video, I shall be looking at the database per tenant strategy with Azure AD security. Now, I am at this web page for www.dofactory.com. So there is this simplified version of Northwind Traders database that I'm going to use for this tutorial. So I'll click on download. So I go to the downloads folder. I right click on the database on the downloaded file and I'll say extract to. So after extracting it, I'm going to right click on this sample model file. I will open it with Notepad. I'll select everything inside. Then I'll head over to SQL Server Management Studio. I'm going to create a new database. So I'm going to call this database simplified Northwind A. Then I'll click OK. Now I'm going to right click on simplified Northwind A. I will select new query. I will paste the query I copied from the other file, and I'll click execute. So I go back to Northwind A and I see that the tables have been created. I close the query file. I go back to Object Explorer. I open a new query on Northwind A database, simplified Northwind A database again. This time around, I go back to the downloaded folder. I will open sample data file with Notepad. I'll copy everything inside the sample data file and I click paste. So I execute. So I close after seeing query executed successfully, I'm going to close the query, the transact SQL query file. You want to save changes? I say no. So if I go back to Management Studio, let me just right click on custom and say select top 1000 rows. There you have it. Now I want to create a copy of simplified Northwind A database. So what I'm going to do is I right click on simplified Northwind A. I'll say task, generate scripts. I click next. Script entire database and all database objects. I click next. I go to advanced. Types of data to script, schema and data. I'm going to open it in new query window. I click next. Then I click finish. So what do? I'm going to create a new copy of simplified Northwind A. So use master, create database. I'm going to change simplified Northwind A to simplified Northwind B. So I'm going to highlight that portion. I click execute. That's done. Now the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to cut off some portion of the query. So now that I've cut off those portions, I'm going to change this one to use simplified Northwind B. Then I scroll down to the end. So use the last statement says use master go alter database simplified not win A. Okay, I'm going to change it back to simplified not win B. Then I click execute. So I change it to simplified not win B. So now there you have it. So I right click on databases, I click refresh. So I have two databases, simplified not win A and simplified not win B, that we are going to use to demonstrate multi-tenancy. Now, inside simplified not win A, I'm going to create a new table. Now, the structure of the table will be user ID, big int, which is primary key, and it's also going to be identity column. And then we are also going to have email address. Let's make it 10 backer 50. So we save this table as solution users. And we are going to make email address unique key. So indexing stroke keys, I click add, type unique key, columns, email address. I click OK. Then I save. Now, let me go back to simplified not win A. So I'm going to put in a user inside that solution user table. The email address for the user is going to be, let me see. So the email address for the user is going to be Benjamin SQL Server at zzq whatever on Microsoft.com. Now I'm going to right click on this solution users table. I'm going to say script table as create to new query editor. Now I'm going to change the use statement at the top to use simplified not win B. So I click execute. So I head over to simplified not win B database. And you can see now I also have a copy of solution users table there. I'm going to open the solution users table. So, and I'm going to put an email address here. Ibukun Oluwadadi at outlook.com. So note that we have two email addresses. We have two users, and each user is contained in a separate database. So now let's start creating our app. So I fire up Blazor Studio this time around, practicing Blazor Studio. Okay. Okay. Now with the license key issue taken care of, so I click new application. This time around the Blazor server application, I click next. Let's call our app Simplified Northwind. For the theme, let's use material. So we are going to save our app on the C drive inside a folder called C Simplified Northwind. Then I click finish. So the app is currently loading. So the app is ready. So let me click on data. I select MS SQL. I click on next. Now it's time to get it's time for me to get the database connection settings. For the server name, I can get it by right clicking at the top here. Copy and paste. Username is SA. IBAN password. 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 As for the database, let's select Simplified Northwind A, and we click next. So I want to scaffold all the tables. Configuration. As customary with me, I call my configuration con-data. I'm not enabling optimistic concurrency. I click next. So I'm generating pages for CRUD. So I just say CRUD, next. Export to Excel, search as you type, yeah, paging, sorting and filtering of lookup data. Double click to edit. So I'm changing the date format to day before month. Then I click finish. So after I click finish, I run the app. Click run. So the app is building. So it's now listening. So here we have this app. So let me click on customers link. Okay. So here you have customers link page displayed. Let me search for Thomas. Okay, fine. All right. So now let's get back to the business of the day, which is implementing multi-tenancy using database per tenant strategy. And we are going to use Azure AD for security. So first thing, we are going to stop this app. Um, After stopping the app, we now go to where we stored our application, which is on the C drive. I open the application folder. I right click on the solution file. So I'll say open with Visual Studio 2022. Let me expand this Solution Explorer. Let me close this. So the first modification we are going to make will be to the app settings file. So I'm going to double click on app settings.json. Let me auto hide this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a multi-tenancy section. Because of time, I'm copying and paste. So in this multi-tenancy section, I'm registering two tenants, tenant 1 and tenant 2. I'm going to modify their connection string accordingly. So I copy over the connection string at the top here. That's the connection string for simplified NotWint A database. So the first tenant is going to be simplified NotWint A database, while the second tenant second tenant is simplified NotWinB database. Then I'm going to save app settings.json. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm bringing back startup.cs file. So I'll right click on the project. I'll say add class. Startup.cs. So I'll click add. Let me make it a partial class. So inside this partial class, I'm injecting configuration settings into the constructor. Also, we are going to have partial void on configure services. Also, we are going to have public void configure services, open curly brace, close curly brace. Now, I'll go back to Solution Explorer. This time around, I'm going to open program.cs file. So I'm going to copy from line 10, which says add services to the container. I'll copy to line 21. I'm going to cut rather. So I cut. So I paste all this. Now the next change I'm going to do is I'm going to say edit. Having highlighted builder.s, I'm going to say edit, find and replace, quick replace. Replace builder.s with just a single s and make sure it's in current document. So change all this to services. Says no more occurrence found. Then I'm also going to change builder.c to just c. Change. Meanwhile, option.use SQL Server is underlined, so I click, I go to quick actions and refactoring. So I add using Microsoft.entity framework core at the top of the class. So on line 19, I'm going to add services.add HTTP context accessor. I'm also going to add this line at the bottom here on configure services. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have partial void on configure. Takes two parameters, iApplication Builder and iWeb host environment. So I'm going to have public void configure, iApplication builder, iWebhost environment, and DataDB context. Open curly brace, close curly brace. Then I will head over to startup class, program.cs class. And I'm going to copy everything from line 12 till line 25. I'm going to cut them. I'm going to paste. Now I'm going to modify line 42 to become if not env dot is development. And then we have 3 lines that are giving us issues. Line 52, 53, 54. I replace line 52, 53, and 54 with this. So at this point, I save. Now, I'm going to entra.microsoft.com. So under Azure Active Directory, I go to Applications. I click on App Registrations. So I click on New Registration. So let me call it, I'm going to call this App Simplified Northwind. Supported account types. Who can use this application to access this API? So I'm going to select accounts in any organizational directory that any Azure AD multi-tenant. As for the direct URI, select a platform. The platform is going to be single page application. And the redirect URI is going to be https://localhost port 5001 slash slash sign in OIDC. So I click register. So then I'm going to click on authentication. And I'm going to select the tokens under implicit grant and hybrid flows. Select access tokens and ID tokens. Then click save. Let's go back to overview. Now at this point, I'm going to open the app once again in Razin. So um, I'm going to close this. Oh, before I go ahead to do any other thing, there is one more thing I need to do here. I need to modify program.cs. I'm going to clean everything that is here. So I'm going to have something like this. Public partial class program, I have main method, then I have the create old builder method, and which tells the web builder to look out for two URLs, port 5001 and port 5002. At this point, I'm going to close the app. Okay. So once again, I will start Razin Blazor Studio. I'm going to open the app in Blazor Studio. So the app is ready. I click on security. This time around, I choose Azure AD. I'll click on next. For now, I will leave this instance as login.microsoftonline.com. Domain, where do I get domain from? Okay. So domain is this, tenant ID, tenant ID, this tenant ID. So I copy tenant ID. Client ID, this client ID. I copy it as well. I paste. Then I click finish. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to close Blazor Studio, Razin Blazor Studio. I'm going to open the application folder once again. This time around, I'm going to use Visual Studio 2022. to open my app once again. So I'm going to open app settings.json. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add common to the instance value. I'm going to remove domain. I'm also going to remove tenant ID. I'm also going to add one more entry here. That is validate authority. I will set this to true. At this point, let's test what we have so far. So I'm being asked to pick an account. Let me pick Benjamin Ferdinand. Let me click accept. So I log in here. Let me go to debug, stop debugging. Let me change the connection string here to simplified notwing B. So I run the app again. So this time around, let me change the URL to 5002. Benjamin Ferdinand. Ìbùkún Olúwaṣítàdì can still access this, which is not what I want. So let's log out. So let's make further modifications to the app. So what we are going to do now is we'll go to data folder. We are going to add a new class. Now the name of the class is going to be datacontext.custom.cs. It's going to be a partial class. Data. Okay, good. Also, we are going to right click on project folder. We are going to add another class. This time around, the name of the class will be startup.custom.cs. This is also going to be a partial class. Because of time, I'm going to paste this. So what do we have? We have a partial definition for unconfigured services method. Here we are adding singleton for HTTP context accessor, and we are adding singleton to get a multi-tenancy section from connection string. Then we have a partial definition for unconfigured method. Quick actions using Microsoft entity.framework.infrastructure. Using Microsoft entity framework.core. So we have the definition for tenant class, and we also have the multi-tenancy class, which returns a collection of tenants, which contains a collection of tenants. The multi-tenancy class contains a collection of tenants. So the last thing we want to look at here is our custom definition for data context, which we change to something like this. We have two read-only properties for context and two read-only properties for HTTP context and multi-tenancy, and then we have two constructors for data context. First constructor takes in options, the accessor, and the multi-tenancy. The first constructor takes 3 parameters, while the second constructor takes 2 parameters. Then we overwrite onConfiguring method here. Now, having done that, we are not done. There's still one more thing we need to do. So the one more thing we need to do is we need to go to controllers. Then we need to open account controller. So this is how account controller looks like right now. So I create a private read-only variable for data service. Next, I create a constructor which injects data service into the account controller. So having done that, right at the bottom of the class, I'm going to create a new method. The name of the method is called validate current user, and this method returns a solution user. So inside the method, I'm going to call a method that does not yet exist in data service. The name of the method is get solution user by email. So what I do is I pass in the name of the currently logged on user to that method. So let's implement the method. So I right click, quick actions and refactoring, generate method, get solution user by email. So go to definition. There is another issue I've got to solve here. I'm going to cut this method. So I go to Solution Explorer. I expand that services folder. I right click on services. Then I'm going to say add class. On data service dot custom.cs. Then I click add. What's the namespace of the original data service? The namespace is simplified not wind. So I have to make this namespace simplified not wind as well. Then I have to make this class partial. Then I paste in the method. So I have public async task, get solution user by email, method not yet implemented. So I'm going to look for get solution user by ID. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the content of get solution user by ID. I will copy them over to get solution user by email. So this one becomes where by item is called context.solution users dot as no tracking dot where I dot email address equals name. That's all. So let me click Save All. Now I'm back to account controller, but let me do it this way. I'm opening account controller now. And see, I'm in account controller. So let's insert the final piece of the puzzle. So inside current user method, I can say var solution user is equal to await validate current user. So I'm going to change this method to public async task. So var solution user is equal to await validate current user. I'm calling validate current user method here. So if solution user is not null, something should happen. If solution user is null, something else should happen. So if solution user is not null, this is what should happen. If solution user is not null, return the application authentication state. User is authenticated, the identity.name, as well as the claims. How about when user is null? When user is null, return is authenticated is false, name is null, claims is just an empty list of claims. So it is time to run the app again. Before I run the app again, let me go back to app settings.json and change the database to solution simplified NotWing A. So now let's run the app. Let me press enter. Let me go to 5001 again. Let me click cancel here. Okay, hold on. Okay, 5001, fine. Okay, let me click accept. So you can see it said we couldn't sign you in. Please try again. Okay, let me sign in as Benjamin SQL Server. So I'm entering my password. I click sign in. So I'm approving. So I've approved. So Benjamin Fadino can access 5001. Let's change to 5002. And Benjamin Fadino tries to access 5002. You can see he cannot. Okay, he can't. Okay, at this point, let me stop the app. Stop debugging. Let me change the database to simplified NotWin B. So let's start running the app again. So, so here we have 5001. Now let's change to 5002. But 5002. So Benjamin Fadino tries to access, cannot. Okay, this time around, let's click use another account. Let's use Ibukun Olua Dati at outlook.com. Click next. So let's enter the password for Ibukun Olua Dati. So I click sign in. Stay sign in, yes. Okay, sorry. It says, sorry, but we're having trouble signing you in. User account Ibukunoluwa Daddy at outlook.com from identity provider live.com does not exist in tenant MSFT and cannot access the application. The account needs to be added as an external user in the tenant first. So what we are going to do to solve this issue is we'll go back to entra.microsoft.com. We'll go to users. Let's go to all users. Then I'll click on invite external user. So the external user I'm going to invite is Ibukunoluwa Daddy at outlook.com. Display name Ibukunoluwa Daddy. Send invite message. Please join our organization. Review and invite. So say invite. So user invitation is in progress. Let me open outlook.com. Yeah, there is this message. Benjamin Fadino invited you to access applications within the organization. Let me make it big. So this is it. Benjamin Fadino invited you. So you see message. If you accept this invitation, you'll be sent to. So let's click accept invitation. So Ibukunoluwa Daddy at outlook.com. Permission requested by accept. Okay. So debug, stop debugging. Simplified not wind. I'm running it again. So I'm going to port 5002. Use another account. Ibukunoluwa Daddy at outlook.com. I click next. Permissions requested. Accept. And here you can see Bukunlo Adadi has access to port 5002 because he's already registered in the database as a user. Let me log out. Let me sign out of Bukunlo Adadi. Let me go back to 5002. Let me try to log in as Benjamin SQL Server. Couldn't sign you in. Let me head over to port 5001. I can log in as Benjamin SQL Server. Let me log out. Let me go back to the same port 5001 and log in as, and I'm going to attempt to log in as Ibukunlo Adadi. So I pick Ibukunlo Adadi. Couldn't sign you in. So thank you for watching.